So in other words, projects are a really bad investment strategy, and sooner or later you will lose money, and in some cases quite a quite a catastrophical amount of money. So let me show how bad projects can be. Let's take an hypothetical project. Let's say it has 10 tasks and each task lasts 1 day. The perfect estimate would be that the project would take about 10 days to complete. Now, that's pretty easy to understand. 10 tasks, 1 day each task, 10 days later, the project is done. But what happens when we actually simulate this project 1,000 times using what is, I would say, an optimistic distribution, a Weibull distribution for the completion time, the actual time for each of these tasks? This is the simulation I ran, and no surprise, the results weren't very good. The perfect estimate frequency in 1,000 runs of this project is about 10, right? So we're talking about a probability of a perfect estimate that is, 4.6%, and that's assuming that 10% off is acceptable, right? So 10% off and still only 4.6% of the 1,000 tries deliver the project on time. The median project duration was 12.4. That's 25% more or less over the perfect estimate. And in order to be 75% confident that you would deliver the project on time, you would go about 30% higher on your estimate. So when people say that they pad estimates, there's a good reason for that, is that there's very little chance of us delivering a project on time. Therefore, we always pad the estimates. Now, some people might say that's a great idea. Why don't we just do that for all the projects? There is one phenomena that goes with that. In some places, it's called the student syndrome or Parkinson's law, which says that basically if you give a project 10 days, it will take 10 days plus something. If you give a project 100 days, it will still take 100 days plus something, and so on and so forth. So the work to be done expands to fill the available time. So the padding doesn't really work because we are talking about humans, not machines here. Now, some of you would say, well, a 10 task, 10-day project is more like a toy project. Let's look at what a real project would deliver. Well, the situation doesn't get any better. So let's look at the simulation of a 100 task project that would take, of course, about 100 days. So we're still having one task lasting 1 day. If you have 100 tasks, you would expect the duration to be 100 days, and that would be our perfect estimate. When we look at 1,000 simulations of this, we see that the probability of a perfect estimate is zero. Literally zero. It never happened in 1,000 tries. And of course, we're talking about a larger project, 10 times larger. So we know that the impact on duration is going to be, the delays that we get from that is going to be growing with that. So we look at 75% confidence interval. So if you're going to estimate, you're going to estimate this at a minimum of 26% higher than what your perfect estimate would be. And then the median duration was 25% higher, so 24.6 instead of 100. Now, when we start to look at this, we start to realize that actually there's a problem at work here. Projects, if we just execute the projects with the normal expected task completion distribution that we see in many projects out there, we can start to see that actually estimates are not going to give us what we want in the end, which is a controlled delivery and also an on-time delivery. Here's the problem, though. You see this curve here, the curve of how many of this 1,000 simulations, how many simulations lasted 20 plus, 100 plus 20, 22 and a half, 25, 27, 32. The problem you see is that you start to see that there's a long tail here. And in fact, 1,000 simulations using a Weibull distribution is a very optimistic simulation. if we really would be using, real life simulations, which for projects would be a bit more complex than just a simple Weibull distribution, you would see that this tail here would grow, and you would have a lot of instances of the project ending much later than the median. And this is a very important recognition. We'll see how that plays out in a second.